So welcome one and all to another SaaSOps live virtual event where we talk about all things SaaS and SaaSOps. And SaaSOps is all about automation, right? Any automation fans here joining us today? Yep, I'm sure there are. So today for episode 14 of SOLVETank, we have Zenfi, the quick and easy process automation for Google Workspace product. And I'd like to welcome Vahid from Zenfi to give us a demo.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Colin. Well, thank you for having me here, first of all. Yeah, I don't have any slides or anything today. We'll dive right into it.
Yeah.
I just maybe for a minute you said it, but I just add a bit more to it. With Zenfi. Zenfi is a no-code workflow automation platform built specifically from the ground up for Google Workspace users. Our background is with workflow automation. We had been doing it with another ecosystem, predominantly Microsoft ecosystem, but over time we saw the need in Google Workspace ecosystem, and we try to bring this similar thing into Google Workspace. As I'm going to show you, you see the kind of things you can do with Zenfi. It puts your business operation in your hands. So it's without writing code. So any business you're working in, everything you do in a business is a process. And as we all move into our digitization, I guess everyone here is from IT. One way or another, you see the kind of workload coming towards us, and then always we have to prioritize and the stuff we can do. So there's just so very few of us out there who can actually spend time on this one. There's 5 times more demand than whatever we can offer, which is good for us in a way. There's always a good job market, but we always need to move faster. The companies would like to move faster. So with a tool like Zenfi, as I'm going to show you, you can move faster yourself. You can enable the people in your organization to move faster. So basically, as an IT person, it frees up the noise. And so because so you can focus on the strategic project. I call them noise doesn't mean a bad thing. It means normally there's a strategic stuff you want to work on, but then you keep getting all these requests from different departments, small ones, which is pretty big for them. But when you put in a scale of the things you want to do, it doesn't hit the top priority bar for them. And you can do all those things without coding. And that doesn't mean coding is bad. It just means that you got to reserve those skills for, as I mentioned, for a more strategic projects that you've got. You don't want to take your Formula One car on the straight. You want to keep it for the track race and use, I don't know, your McLaren or your Ferrari for the streets, right? Or if you're going to a party, probably use your limo, whatever it is you're driving. So now we jump right into it. Today, I'm going to show you 2 demos. One is on a simpler side, one is on a more complex side. And we can see and we can talk to the use cases as we're building this. So when you come to Zenfi, you land on a page like this. Okay, so everything in Zenfi revolves around the concept of the flow. Flow is basically normally is a one-to-one mapping to a process, and that process could be, I don't know, an accounting process, a payroll process, an order processing process, an onboarding process, an offboarding process. Or sometimes you've got a process which maps to multiple flows because that would be the better way of implementation. Also, you've got the concept of the connections here. These connections are the way to be able to integrate Zenfi with other platforms. I mean, of course, we've got you will see we've got deep integration, seamless integration with pretty much all Google Workspace services, but we've got a lot of other integrations, and there are quite a few also available here, which we enable them on demand. for our customer. There's quite a few integrations we've got. Now, the scenario we're going to go through today is one scenario that we've seen being used a lot. It's a very simple scenario, but it's very useful for companies which, when they hit a certain size and they start on managing their Google Workspace licenses. So we've got customers, and then this is managed by IT normally. We've got customers who've got, when they hit the few thousand Workspace licenses, and they normally have got contractors. They find themselves in a situation where they're paying for Google Workspace licenses, but they're not being used. Actually, the person either has moved on or the contractor has been terminated. The offboarding process didn't kick off properly for whatever reason. It's all there. Now we want to see how we think we can also put that process on autopilot, understanding if someone is hasn't been active for a while and it's got a Google Workspace license assigned to him or her, and then from there we can either revoke the license or generate a report. Okay, so when you come here, these are what we call triggers. These are what starts the process. Can be a schedule trigger, a CTP trigger, which or can be triggered from any other applications. We can watch a Google folder drive, and as soon as a file is added to that drive, start a process. It's really useful for the drop folder situation, like document approval. We can monitor an inbox for an incoming email, or we can also start a flow when a form is submitted. For this one, because we want to say, we want to run this process every quarter, I start the timer process. It lands me on the Zenfi Designer. On the left-hand side, I've got what we call actions. These are the building blocks of the process. So you like a Lego blocks, you plug them to each other to build up your process, as you will see. First thing I'm going to do, actually, I click on the trigger, and you see the panel slides on the right-hand side. I'll just configure it. I say, starting from 1st of September, every 3 months, go and run this process. Okay, that's done with that. First thing I want to do, I want to go to Google directory and say, hey, can you please give me all the licenses that's been assigned, has been used within my directory. Okay, now I drag and drop the action here. I'll leave the name as listing licenses. I try to configure it. I say this is the demo.zenfi.com. All the licenses from for this domain and for this product. Here I can select a connection. Again, just remind the connection is what enables Zenfi to act on your behalf. You authorize Zenfi to act on your behalf. If you have one, you can select it. If you don't, you just click on this and authorize and create one. Also, I can see the output of the action. That means once the action gets executed, we see a list of licenses. Okay, now we've done the first step. Hey Google directory, give me all the licenses assigned, which are used in my within the domain specified. Then I go and start for each one of those licenses. I want to execute an action or two. So this is a loop action. I'm just going to configure it and say, go and loop through all those licenses. So whatever logic I put here is going to happen for each one of those licenses. For each one of those licenses, then again, I go back here and I say, go and check the last activity date for the specified application and event. So here I can configure the setting. Whenever you see this little icon here, that means that you can dynamically configure the value. And I say, go while you're looping through the item, the current item, get the user ID and the application. these depending on the organization, the way you classify an active user could be different. Some people consider the last login date. Some people consider the last time an email was sent or received. For some companies, consider it when the drive folder was or drive file was created. Could be the way they classify users are active. But for our scenario, I say go to Drive and don't worry about the event and list out all the events. But then list out all events that's from the beginning of the time the user is coming. But you know what? In our organization, we want to say list out all the events the user has performed in the last 30 days. So to do that, I need to go here and I start searching for the current date time. I first get the current date time. Then I want to calculate the 3 days ago, the date for 3 days ago at date time. Okay, I get the date time, and I guess it defaults into Australia, Melbourne time zone. That's where I am, and I go and add minus. I say go and get current date time, and this is the date time when the flow is actually executing. So whenever if it executes now, it gets current date time. If it executes in a month, it gets that date time. And we add minus 30 days to it and rename it 30 days ago. Okay, now I can come here and I say, give me all the activities after 30 days ago. As you can see, I'm putting the Lego blocks in there and using them and chaining them together to build up the logic. And once I've done that, so here I go and say list activities since 30 days ago. Okay, once I've done that, I want to come here and I say, check if there has been any activities. So I go and say, if building a logic using the condition builder here, I come and say, go and when you perform the list activities, get the number of activities. And if there's been anything, that means if the number of activities greater than 0, that means has been active. The user has been active. Now, I want to highlight, you can customize this hardware fits in to your needs, your organization needs. Can add multiple conditions and can do a lot more into it. Okay, now if the user has been active, just goes to this true branch. If it hasn't been active, goes to the false branch. So we've got a few options in the false branch. If you're a really strict IT department, we can go and right away revoke the license for that user. But that would be too harsh, I guess. You probably want to go and check with that person's manager and get some sort of approval or some sort of confirmation before doing that. So what you do is that you can come here, you can go and say, hey, look up that person's manager, the current person manager, and assign a task to that person's manager to get the approval. Okay, and let's do this one. I come here and I say, I put assign task. Let me configure revoking license for, and I put @ sign for the picker to come up. So it's the same as pressing this. Come here and I say user ID, and I'm not going to assign it to the manager. I'm going to assign it to the same person so we can see it for the demo. Audrey.Clarkson@demo.zenfy.com. I paste it here. Hi, we have noticed that user ID has not been active in the last 30 days. Do you approve us revoking his license? I just keep it like that, as simple as that, and I move forward. So assign a task, and I say only go and revoke if it's approved. So if the task outcome equals to approve, okay, and I rename this approved. I'll just give you the name so we can say only then go and revoke the license. I can drag and drop it here. I'm not going to do it again. I'll just delete this. So by mistake, if I want to approve it, I'm not going to revoke any one of those licenses. That's one way of doing it. Let me save this, give it a name, license control, give it a name. And so that I can run it, I use this action. Let me write a few things here. Approved to revoke the license. And I copy paste this one. So this is the action called log to history. It's really useful for debugging as well as auditing. So I'll show you, because whatever we type in here, we can see when the flow gets executed. Rejected. I just leave it to rejected. And I come up here, I put another one here. There are, I get the number of licenses in our directory. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out a bit so we can see. Let's do a recap. So we're going to say every 3 months, go list all the licenses and see basically if each one of them has been active in the last 30 days. And if not, go assign a task to the manager and to see if you need to approve it or not. So to test it, let's do a test run. I'm going to say start a new instance. Yes. And we can see as the actions are getting executed. So on the left-hand side, we can see the live progress of the action. So it has listed has gone and executed this action. So if I go to log to history, so there are 24 licenses in our directory. So that's this action. That's where log to history comes in handy. And we can see the live progress of it. It's looking through the first one. It's getting the activities for the first one. I guess it's down here. It's listing the activity. And when it does it, it comes and assigns a task to the person. So as I was saying, in a matter of, I don't know how many minutes we've gone through, but we've managed to build a logic which saves you a lot of time and a lot of energy. I mean, you could do this thing with writing code, sure, probably, but then you got to ask the questions, the time it's going to take to do it, and also the time it's going to take to manage it, the infrastructure and all those things. That's the time you're not spending on the actual stuff. So as it's getting executed, I'm looking for someone. Okay, one of them hasn't been active, so a task should come in to the same person. As you can see, this is how the task come in. We say, this is what we say. We have noticed this user has not been active in the last 30 days. Do you want to approve or reject it? I said, just reject it. Don't delete it. We need that person still. Maybe he's been on sick leave or something. So yeah, and it continues and does it for all the rest. Now I'm going to cancel this. Let me go out actually and cancel the whole execution. Not this one. This one. I'm going to cancel the whole execution, so it's not proceeding any further. So that was one of the scenarios I wanted to walk you through. More on the IT side. Now let me bring you on the ops side. And the scenario I want to show you is the supplier invoice routing and approval. So which is Very common, and that is normally goes to the accounting and accounts payable team. Really love seeing this process being automated. So the idea is that you work with your company works with many suppliers, and what happens on daily basis, on weekly basis, they send you their invoices to be paid, but they send it through email. Pretty much every company we've seen, they use email to send the invoices. And in a company, someone in accounts payable or multiple people, depending on the size, they have to open up each and every email and see, and the invoices attached to them, and see, okay, this invoice is from Zenfi. Who is the budget, or who is it for? It's for Vahid. Which cost center it is for? Okay, let me put it in the other system and then send it for Vahid for approval. That's a very labeling intensive task. Now, let's see how we can quickly automate a process like that with Zenfi. Now, I'm not going to use build it from scratch. I'm going to use one of the templates we've got here, which is this one, and take it forward from there. So when I'm building up the template, I just need to configure a few connections which are being used in the flow. Email connection for sending, yeah, use that one. Receiving, monitor this. This is the sheet, and I want to put everything in this folder. Go here. So as soon as I say use this template, it's going to go and create a folder in here and copy everything in this folder. Let's see, and land me here. So these are all everything I need to run my process. So I'll show you quickly how the process runs. So it monitors a Gmail inbox. So that would normally be your invoices at yourcompany.com or accounts payable at yourcompany.com. First thing we do here, as soon as an email arrives, we go and establish if this is a valid invoice. I mean, you can have multiple clauses here, but I've got two. First is if it's got any attachment, and it's got word invoice in the subject, but you can add many more. Then goes and does a bit of housekeeping, extract the email address of the person who sent the invoice, and then uses this action, which is called Lookup Row, goes to a Google Sheet and says, hey, give me the person who is the internal person who is associated with this sender. And that Lookup Row is coming from here, basically. So you can go here and say, if an email comes from Vahid at zenfi.com, send it to this person or send it to this department. And this is, you can have multiple things. This is the folder associated to that person. Okay. So that's how it works. It picks it up, it goes and saves the attachment to the folder associated to that supplier, and then it starts an approval process. Okay, now this is how it works out of the box, but I want to take it one step forward. I want to say maybe email is not good enough for us to be able to associate it. Now I want to use a functionality called Invoice Processing, some AI builder functionality. I step out of this one to see, you want to go and say, actually, you know what, go and open up the invoice and extract the supplier name of the invoice for us, right? We're not going to use the email. We're going to extract the actual information from the attached file. That could be a PDF, that could be docx or whatever. So for that, we've got this AI builder model here. We come and create a model quickly to show you how it can work. Let me go to the desktop. I'll just give it a sample invoice. Any one of these, I guess, would work. What is this one? Yep, Alex here. I just give it a sample invoice. So this is like AI powered OCR, was called intelligent document processing. It extracts you can extract all those fields, but I'm only interested at the moment. Come here, and I'm only interested in the supplier name. That's the supplier name. You see, I get the confidence level here as well. So it's AI. I get a confidence level. I say only go and extract supplier name and name it supplier name. Yes. Probably I can go and extract the total amount as well. I extract total amount as well. I leave it as total amount. So if I go and looking at output of these two, a total amount. I give it a name, invoices model. I just need to give it one sample invoice so that I can specify the fields I'm interested in. Okay, now with this model, once I save and publish this, any type of invoice I give to this model from any supplier, it can pretty much extract those information, those standard information. Now let's go back to our flow and start using it in our flow. I come here, I leave this step, and you know what? I come here to artificial intelligence. I can say read row, read form value. Yeah, this is how I configure. I say go and use the model and run it on the attachment. Actually, gotta bring it. Go and run it on this attachment. It automatically suggests. And the beauty of it is that once it does it, you know, the specified fields are available to us, and we can use it in the flow to form our logic. So that means I don't need this extract form anymore, and instead, I'm gonna go and say, use the supplier name. Once you ran this value, use the supplier name to figure out who is the local person handling it now. I'm going to delete this action as well. Lookup supplier. Recipient, lookup supplier, row, and handler. I think I just remove this extra. There's a bit of logging and auditing in place. I remove those ones. Give me a second. So clean it up. And one last thing, I mark the same person or Clarkson at demo.zenfi.com. I mark that person as their accounts payable team. Okay, save. I'm gonna publish this flow. Well, I need to do one last thing. You know, I need to fill out this table, supplier table. I've already prepared a list of supplier names that would come out from those invoices, because now we're matching based on supplier names. I'm going to assign them all three actually, all three. Clarkson at demo.zenfi.com. I'm going to assign them to the same person, but you can assign them to different people and get this folder ID, put it in there. You don't really need to do this, and if only you do it if you are you want to store them in Google Drive. You can store them in Sheets and any other application as well. I just name them like that. So if I go ahead, this is a inbox we're monitoring. If I go ahead and send an email to this inbox, let's see what happens. I send an email from here. I say call Slater and your September invoice, please find it attached. I'm gonna go and attach an invoice from another supplier. Actually, if I go put it on the desktop, if I go and select say this invoice and press send, as soon as I send, let's go back here. Let's see when it arrives.
It's always very interesting that a watched email will never arrive. It seems to take forever and ever when you're waiting for it to appear. I'm glad it has.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Sometimes you say they're arriving in Zenty before in Google. Yeah, so if you can see it's here and it starts doing its work, and it so it has run the AI model. It has assigned a task to this person. If I go invoice approval, and as you can see, this is a different kind of task because it's a task form where you can design, assign a task and design a form to capture extra information as well. So, and from here on, where I can go and say approve, I could add a lot more information here if I wanted to approve or reject. And so I just wanted to highlight, it actually ran the AI model on the invoice attachment, looked up the information on the sheet and assigned it to the person. And if I press submit, the rest of the flow is going to get executed, and the rest, as you have seen, it's going to proceed and save it to the drive and so on. So hopefully, I was able to show you some of the, two of the use cases. You could do a lot more around document approval, or the complex document approval using state machine. You can use parallel branches. Or you can bring in e-signature, you name it. You can interact with Salesforce, HubSpot, as all the other major CRM systems out there, with an ease of drag and drop.
All right, excellent. It's been, I know my colleagues' brains are churning away thinking about the problems that this could solve, the problems they didn't think they had, giving them an idea of a different way of automating things. Obviously, you've shown us two very simple things: the approval flow of an invoice, and then which could be used for any department, and then for certainly us as admins, something as simple as getting managing licenses and automating that process. So in the next sort of 15 minutes that we've got left, I want to open it up to the professionals here, the SaaSOps professionals, to ask questions. Anyway, I'm sure there must be someone who wants to unmute and ask a question first. Come on, guys, I can never keep you quiet.
Randy superseded me at the beginning by telling me that the pricing is on the website and very transparent. So
apart from
that totally stole my thunder.
You could ask about enterprise pricing, because that was come and ask us. But
so one of the historically, let's give some background of historically. One of the questions we always ask is about the pricing. We are very impressed that you are very upfront about the pricing. Have that displayed on the website, except for the enterprise. That's always the phone for a conversation.
Sure. So look, with the pricing, with the whole thing about Zenfi, we wanted to lower the barrier of entry to this whole workflow automation platform, like enterprise grade workflow automation platform. Like, you've got a ton of functionality here where you can get not even all of them, some of them you can get really, really expensive providers out there. So that's why we thought, we create our pricing was structured to with that in mind. We really, one of the things we work towards is just democratizing this whole work, no code automation. On enterprise pricing, it's the reason it's not out there just because it's too hard to put it out there. It's just too hard to put it out there. You just need to understand a bit more about how it's being used, how we can help, and so we can provide the best best value for you as well. It just got to be bespoke. We really couldn't find a formula for it to put it out there. It just got to be bespoke.
Yeah, sounds reasonable. Often a lot of those discussions require more of a discovery on the corporation and what they're hoping to achieve.
Sure.
I've noticed that your pricing model, though, does it seems to scale with both like included document AI, which is only available on the 3rd pricing tier and enterprise pricing. And then also like what seems to me to be the like API load, right? So instead of being per user pricing model, you're doing like a per work pricing model, right? The number of workflows, the number of calls, the number of AI documents, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. So it's definitely not per user. You just wanted to lower the barrier of entry. You just, first of all, it's too hard for everyone to understand per user pricing in this context, because who's going to touch the real process and all those things? And also, very soon it becomes really, really expensive, which is not bad for us, but it's not good for the end user because the barrier of entry is too high. So we've simplified it as much as possible. There's 2 tiers, other than the free tier, which you can keep using. There's essentials tier, there's professional tier. Professional tier is meant for collaborative editing. So that's the main differentiator, I'd say, on top of the support, priority support. Or you can invite people to your workspace, multiple people can share a workspace. There's a few more functionalities you get in professional. It's like included AI, document AI is one of them. But then in essentials, if you want, maybe it works for you. And actually, we've got a customer like that who bought essential, but bought document AI pack on top of it. And it's running document AI because in their company, there's just one person managing it. And that worked pretty well for them. So that's the main idea there. There's a few advanced, very advanced feature which we've seen it's only being used when you've got collaborative editing, like in the bigger organizations. Otherwise, you can very well start with essentials, and then if you see if it's adding value, you can work your way up from there.
You mentioned about Rose mentioned about API limits. What are the potential restrictions or bottlenecks? Because obviously, I work in a company that's got 2,000 people. If all of those 2,000 people were creating, automation processes on emails that they were getting, where are the bottlenecks, or where aren't the bottlenecks?
Sure. The main limitations are imposed by this source systems. Like if you're using Gmail, I guess to send email, Google imposes, I guess, 2,000 email per day or something like that. There's no limitation as such on Zenfi. Zenfi scales out, so theoretically there's no limit on the way it does it. Like you can add as much load as you want to Zenfi. The other limitation, depending on we don't really enforce it, but we've got a fair use policy. That's the right term for each tier. So like I know for professionals, like 5,000 runs a month. That's a fair use policy. But again, we don't really enforce it, but we work with you. If you keep hitting that limit, we work with you, understand, if you need more allocation there. The only other limit I can think of is that if you've got a Google Forms a trigger to start your flow, you can have 20 of them per user. That's a limitation imposed on the Google side. We're working around it, but those are the only thing I can remember really. Otherwise, in terms of the MP execution, no.
So it's all based around the user account that's running the process, because obviously I guess there'd be a Google OAuth authorization to allow my account or anybody else's account to run these processes as them.
Exactly.
And I've got an admin question.
Sure.
Rose is with our fictitious company, the SaaSOps Life Incorporated company. She's created a load of good workflows. Rose then gets poached by another SaaS company and leaves. How can I, as an admin, transfer the workflows that she's created to somebody else, or is there a way that people can collaborate? Is who owns the flow that has been created? Is it
the flow is owned by the person who's published them the first time, but they can be shared. But then if you go in and remove it, it's the same, but it works the same way when you see when you're uploading a person from your Google Workspace, you can assign. So I don't know if I've got any Workspace users. If I go and say want to remove one of these people here, let's remove Jade. I guess here it's gonna ask who you want to transfer the ownership of everything she has created to. Okay. Because it's not just the flows. We've got this concept of the vault as well, where it's a way to share secrets without not to share secrets, actually, to enable people to use your secrets. Okay. You've got an API key as an admin, you go and put it in the vault, and you share the vault with me. I cannot see the value, but I can use it in my flow to make an API or a call to an authenticated API. So even those one gets transferred. The same as with connections and all. Connections, I don't think it gets transferred. They are attached to the user, but then the flows as well get transferred.
So you could create the workflow, but have a service account actually be the one running it with the API key on some tool, so you don't have to add another licensed user to a tool if that's how you've built it. Is that correct?
Sorry, what was the question? So can you repeat that, please?
Well, it was just kind of confirming that you could be the one making the flow, and with that vault of a shared API key, somebody's API key in, I don't know, DocuSign for the heck of it, that you want an action to happen, you've made a service account that you function with. So that's the one you already administer with. You don't have to go and make another licensed user that you have to pay for to go and do actions. Right. You can use your service account.
That's right. So you can absolutely, that's right. So like you can come here and create an API key, my test API key, I just call it, and put some value here and mark it as shared. And once you created it, you can use it in your flow. If I go, for example, here, because there is an action here which enables you to make a call to any HTTP endpoint, right? And then you can say your URL is HTTPS, I don't know, xyz.com, and then API key equals. So this could be another person designing the flow, can come and just use the vault value if you have shared it with that person. You just put it in there, and the person cannot see the value, but it gets used in the flow, which is really powerful from that aspect. Like for DocuSign and all those things, you can create it. We've got connections available out of the box. So if I come here and I use DocuSign action, you can share the connection itself. So you can create a connection and share the connection. Cool. But if there's, say, an internal application or application where we don't have any out-of-the-box integration, you can make an HTTP call, but as you said, create a service account, one service account, and share the API key in the vault, not the value itself.
Nice.
Vahid, how long have you been in production, and what are the most common examples that customers are using this for?
Sure. I mean, Zenfi is actually pretty new. We launched it in January this year, 2021. As in like a production launch. It was in beta for 5-6 months, but then we went to production there. But then the common use cases, and so far we've got 3 data centers, one in the States, one in Europe for European customers, one in Australia. And we've got customers pretty much 60 plus customers now using it. Depending on the use cases, onboarding and offboarding is always the most common use case. I know there's a lot of onboarding and offboarding, and that could be employee, that could be contractor, that could be, Supplier. It's very common, but then because you can customize it here not with any workflow automation, you can customize to your own need. It's very common on a HR side. Performance reviews, training schedules, we've seen they're doing it. And if you go to the finance, the invoice processing, accounts payable, what you just saw, it's by far the most used use case. You've seen it because it's, and as I keep saying, the accounts payable team loves the IT team for doing that because it frees them up, and it just is such a boring task for them to do. There is about procurement management, vendor management, thing. If you go to the sales ops, there's quite a few scenarios in the sales operation, code generation, again, customer onboarding, order processing, some sort of reporting, because here you can generate reports, you can generate documents quite easily using Google Docs or Google Slides. So you've got sales ops automating their monthly report document using Google Slides, using a template and Google Sheet. So they don't have to go and spend, 5 hours a month, each one of them creating a Google Slides. On IT side, there's quite a few things actually, requesting the IT devices as simple as that. You create a Google form, comes in there, Another simple but yet effective thing we've seen in the IT is enabling people to request to create a Google group for them. So you've seen creating a Google form where he can go and fill it out. Hey, IT, I wanna create a group called Zenfi group, Zenfi professionals. So what happens? They just look at it, they say approve or reject, and then the flow goes and creates a group and adds the people to it. So rather than the IT person having to go and doing it automatically. There's legal.
I was going to say, that's a very, very good use case that I can think of a number of organizations that will be able to use that. Sorry to have you, Vahid, we've got about 5 minutes left of our normal scheduled time, and I want to give people at least 20, 30 seconds to give their quick feedback. So if I can call on people, and I'll go with Randy first because I can see he's unmuted.
Oh boy. So my most immediate reaction when I saw it was like, oh, wow, this is complex. There's a whole hell of a lot to this. But I already intend to do a demo. I've just booked a demo this week to see it anyways. So this is great. And really what it did is it just opened up more ideas. It didn't make me panic too much because, again, it's no coding. I don't have to do the coding. So as much as it's complex, it's the features and the options are already there. So that was very appealing to, okay, I can get into it. I can start working through it and expand the ideas. I had one simple idea for myself as the most immediate thing, and then this alone added onto it. And yeah, I'm impressed and interested. So I'll be meeting with them.
Excellent. All right, Vahid, if you could unshare your screen, then we can see everybody in full detail.
Yeah,
brilliant. And I'll call on Brian because I can see he's turned his camera on. He's out and about. We don't want to use up all of his data. Thoughts quickly?
Yeah, no, I like it. I've seen the demo before, but I think the examples that Vahid showed us today are fairly complex and fairly relevant. So I think I'll probably look at the tool again to see if there's any specific requirements from whether it's internal or external requirements from some of our customers.
Excellent. Yes. Andy, before you nod off to sleep, I know it's getting late there in the UK.
A little bit. I definitely like the googliness, and I like the sort of the sense of how this fits in with that ecosystem. I think there's a couple of things you could do to push that a little bit. I'd love to see AMP for Gmail in the notifications to really tighten that up quite a bit. The one question I have with a lot of these kinds of tools is around the triggers. We often find that the actions you can take, there's loads and loads and loads, but the triggers are quite limited. And it seems here, I'd also like to see a little bit more in terms of what triggers you offer and what triggers are supported. But looks kind of interesting, yeah.
Cool. Chris Tucker?
Yeah, so when I first saw it from when Colin sent out the invite, I thought Microsoft Flow a little bit, but
now that I see it, I don't think Microsoft Flow. I think much better. I'm actually intrigued a lot by this, and I want to check it out.
Excellent, excellent. Rose Layton. You can unmute yourself if you want.
Jerk who can't. Yeah, I'm sorry. My mouse like disappeared off of my other monitor. Yeah, I mean, I always am interested in seeing automation tools. I think this one is a really interesting one, in particular because of some of the flexibility and the logic modeling behind it. You know, I think some things that other tools, you know, you would have to have multiple workflows for. You could, you know, put in the kind of logic here in this tool that would allow you to, you know, cover what we might need 5 workflows for in another tool. So that's very interesting to me. Always, when I see something like this, you know, I think to myself, what could this look like if it affected more than just Google, right? Like Google is only one piece of any SaaS stack, and it's a big piece for sure. But, you know, it's nice when I can take something that happens in Google and pipe it into Slack, right? If I can take something that happens in Zoom and pipe it into Google, you know, just to name some easy ones. But, you know, like when we talk about automation at scale and automation maturity, you know, you're working your way towards that HRIS to SaaS stack integration, usually, or an identity manager to your SaaS stack and to your HR systems. And so that's just something that I would caution you to think about as you move forward. But I do think you've built something very interesting, something very flexible. And the kinds of people who would participate in something like some of these approval workflows and things like that are familiar with this kind of logic system. So while I think it can be complex for a total newbie, I think it would be something that, you know, most folks sort of mid-stage career would be able to grasp pretty quickly.
It always can I just add to that point? Sorry, it was probably I should have included one of those in the one of the demos that we've got those quite a few integration in place. You know, with the major.
I thought I saw that on the sidebar, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, they are there. I probably should have included in the demo. There's so much we want to show, you know, just goes on, but make some try to include them in the demo as well.
Well, Rose, you're going to have to sign up for the free account and have a look. Quick feedback from Henry and Yam, if you want to give any.
Vahid, nice product. I think I talked to one of your you know, sales director in England about cooperating with you guys. We have our own no-code application builder, a very different approach. You know, we build application, but this is a nice tool that for our clients that have a large environment, we'll look into it and maybe recommend it. But good work. I understand how tough it is to build these products. And,
thank you.
Good work. Yeah. I asked Richard Knight to join us. Richard will be presenting next week. I don't know if Richard has any comment.
Yeah, I thought the sort of power to ease of use balance was spot on. As we found when we were trying to build ours, building a UI that lets users do powerful things, there's a limit to how simple it can be and still achieve the task. There's an inherent complexity in what you're trying to define, and there's no way around that. But I think you guys did a great job of making it as easy to use as possible with the power and flexibility you're trying to give. So I thought that was good. And the AI form processing seems like that could be a very powerful thing. And the last comment is, I love Colin's shirt.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a classic. This t-shirt is about 21 years old. I'm sure I bought it in 2000 or 2001 when I first heard about ThinkPeak. Was the store, clothing store in North America. Got this when I was working in Philadelphia back in the day. Yeah, it's to close off today's show. It has been great to see the product. It has made me think about a lot of different things that we could do, we should do. The drag and drop makes it very, very easy. There's a build things and make actions repeatable. And the UI looked very, very pleasant, very, very crisp, very what people are used to using in any of the other Google suites. It's interesting when you said you had 3 data centers. I'm assuming they're just cloud GCP regions and not actual physical data centers that you're renting. And it's brilliant to have Henry and Richard on, because as a preview for next week's episode, we're going to have those 2 guys from gwapps.com on and carry on discussing and looking at all of these different automation tools. There's multiple ways to automate stuff, and it's glad to have everybody on and talking about how we do that. So thank you ever so much for everybody for joining us again. Join us again next week. Thank you.
Colin, can I
yes.
Can I add something? So everyone, thank you very much for the feedback you've given. Really enjoyed being on the show. So I think it's a way of saying thank you. I just say this: if you any one of these people on the call sign up, I'll bump you up to Essential for free for account. So Collins, if you can send me a list, I'll do that.
Yeah, I can check with everybody. It's okay to share their contact information and send it over, and or I'll post in our Slack channel your contact information. I'm assuming that's okay to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Post it in there and reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Yeah. Of course, you can find us in the Better IT Slack channel and SaaSOps.community. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.